And we are back with another episode of Investigating Innovation with the I2C. I'm your host, Madison Travis, and today we're going to be taking a sneak peek into our newest series called Founder Fundamentals. This is going to be a crash course of all the business basics and what to be looking for whenever you're starting your business. Today we're sitting down with Roger Spain from Warren Averett to see what his company is going to be covering during the series. Let's roll. Hey, Roger, we're so excited to have you on the podcast today. Super excited to hear a little bit more about the Founder Fundamentals series and what that's going to look like. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is in your company and also this series as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited to participate as well. I think this is great and hopefully useful to everyone. I'm coming into this as a CPA who's been working for 30 years, which I know I look more youthful, right, than that. But now I've been doing this for 30 years in various capacities in both accounting and finance. I cut my teeth originally as an auditor, then moved into some consulting projects, a lot of project feasibility studies and cost and pricing model studies for various types of businesses, and did a lot of internal control work for businesses. Then I moved into business valuation type work and got some credentials in business valuation and performed those services in the context both of an M&A, mergers and acquisition context, as well as a complex commercial litigation context as well. And then from there, I spent a few years in commercial banking and then changed my location. And when I changed cities, I got back into the professional services arena where I work now with Warren Averett, and I'm part of a group that provides outsourced accounting and outsourced CFO, maybe controllership type services. But right now, yeah, we're providing outsourced accounting and CFO functions.
Awesome. Okay. All over. You have so much experience in so many different avenues as well, which is actually perfect for, this is kind of like a little preview into our Founder Fundamentals series. We haven't quite launched it, but whenever this goes up, I think it'll be coming in the next few days. So that's super exciting. With all that experience that you're bringing into this industry, what are some of the topics that you're going to be covering in this kind of startup crash course series that we're launching?
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, really excited about this, and we're going to try to build from the ground up and try to make sure we build with a good foundation and then get into more complex topics from there. So we're going to start with what I'm going to refer to as financial statement literacy. We're going to talk about what financial statements are, what they're supposed to present, how to read them, a little bit in terms of how to populate them, which is, how to perform some accounting services, but we'll stay pretty light on that. From there, we're going to move into using financial statements and using financial data in order to really manage and operate a company. And then lastly, we're going to move into capital structure strategies, which really relate to things like, should I sell stock? Should I borrow money from a bank? How to build a capital stack in a company, and what some of the advantages and disadvantages to the various strategies might be there.
Yeah. As a business student, I feel like I had my fair share, especially in the beginning, of all the balance sheets and income statements that someone could dream of. I feel like
so sorry you had to go through that.
Right? My marketing mind does not like the financial side of things. But it's super important, especially whenever you're wanting to start your own business. So, after all of your years in industry, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see in regards to finance whenever a person is trying to build up their business or start from the ground up?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things I see businesses struggling with is that they need to have a willingness to change. They need to be willing to evolve and grow as the business grows or becomes increasingly complex. What you did yesterday may not be sufficient to get you where you want to go. So keeping an eye toward where the company is heading and being willing to adapt in with regard to accounting and financial applications within the company. The other thing is planning. Be sure, I would say, businesses need to prepare projections and budgets and plan over and over and revise those plans over and over again. So the real theme here is accept change and evolution within a company, and always look forward and think about growth.
Yeah, and sometimes it is hard to really accept that change, especially if it's about a topic or area of the business that you're not super sure of or like familiar with. And I feel like financials can sometimes become that for people because they
Hmm.
have this really great idea and they know what they want to do with it. But the financial side is one, it sometimes cannot be as fun. You made your videos pretty fun though. So, so
I don't know. They're about accounting. I tried.
no, but that side of things can just sometimes be really unsure. It's not something that is necessarily fun to consider and talk about, especially when you're in the early stages of your business. And in a year like 2020, financials were not something that was just a bright and cheery conversation at times. So planning is super important, and change is something that has to be considered, even though it may not be the most fun thing to discuss.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just the reality of it. But is there a part of that financial planning that you think is maybe more important than others, or would you say it's all kind of like a harmonious process where each of them kind of pull equal weight? Kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, it is harmonious. I mean, they're all dependent on one another. But a biggie to me is, I mentioned it a moment ago, but is projections. I mean,
Right.
prepare budgets and projections, and not that it's necessarily a budget that you think you have to live by, but just prepare projections of what you think will happen or could happen or should happen, and bracket that. I mean, prepare a best case scenario for projections and a worst case and a most likely case, and tweak that. Also, know what your important drivers are within those projections. Clearly, sales is, revenue is the biggie, right? That's first. Well, a lot of things drive off of revenue. So be willing to play the what if games. Okay, what if revenue outperforms or underperforms? Then what costs do I have within the company that I may find have elasticity related to different revenue models that I see going forward?
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I think, sometimes looking at those projections is kind of like scary because you're like, I really thought it. Yeah, I feel like a lot of times entrepreneurs, it's this myth where they're like, you're gonna make all this money for yourself, you're gonna be your own boss, but like, there's a lot more that goes into this. Hence, why we are creating an entire crash course on all of the parts of this with you guys and Maynard Cooper. We're super excited about it, but. Sometimes those projections cannot be they're more like a reality check, but also like a super hopeful side of things, because you're like, if you're down and out at the moment, you can look forward and be like, well, this is what we've planned for. And like you said, if you're focusing on those drivers, then you're going to work towards that goal that you have and kind of those
Yeah.
projections that you've already laid out, because if you're not, then of course nothing's going to work. So
Yeah, and run the multiple scenarios. I mean, run the best case, run the worst case, run the most likely case,
right.
and then plan for each. What
Yeah.
are you going to do if you hit one model versus another? And
Right.
then a last thing, as you and I have talked about this, in an early stage entity, what might this look like? Somebody's wondering, well, what should it look like? And I would say just go with whatever makes sense to you. And if you have a banker that you want to talk to, or a CPA, get some help. But keep in mind, just make an effort, do something. When as it relates to this, as well as many things in starting a business, the enemy of the great is the enemy of good. I'll say it that way. And so it doesn't have to be great. Make it good. Just be good. Don't be great. Don't be perfect. Don't think you have to do it perfectly. Just do it pretty well. Just do it good, and then it will improve over time.
For in kind of in regards to that of it not being perfect, I was in a class this past semester, and we had to create an entire business plan and have all of our like pro forma projections in there, like all of our financial analysis had to be in there. And it was so funny because I was sitting there with my group and we were all like, well, I don't know. Like, and we kind
Sure.
of emailed her
Yeah.
and we were like, hey, like, what kind of numbers are you expecting from this? Like, how exact are you wanting? And she was like, it can't be exact. She was like, this is all
Right.
made up. She was like, but you need to think of it realistically. And like, if you were doing this for real, what would it look like? And I was like, okay. And I feel like that kind of goes in the real world too. Like you can't
Right.
know, and unexpected things happen all the time. So like, if you strive to be perfect, you're just going to be sitting there racking your brain constantly, wondering why the numbers aren't adding up, and you'll just keep going in a circle. But starting a business is very, very exciting, stressful, busy, all the words. But many parts are overlooked or disregarded whenever this entity is being built up, and that can be due to lack of knowledge, just stress about the situation, and all those kinds of factors. So, in your opinion, and with your advice, like what is the best way for an entrepreneur not to become overwhelmed by the financial aspect of starting a business?
Yeah. I'll break that down into maybe two questions. One is, how do you avoid being overwhelmed by the accounting for a business? So, again, um, don't seek the help of those who may be experts in certain areas. I mean, don't be your own lawyer and don't necessarily be your own accountant. So get a little bit of help. I know it may cost a few bucks, but get a little bit of help. And just make an effort, ask a few questions. There's great software out there now to help small business owners. Things like QuickBooks and things like that are actually not too difficult to use. So avail yourself to those things. And then as it relates to perhaps the financial aspect of running a company, I'm going to continue to go back to the old plan and project. I cannot overstress that. It's impossible to overstress that because it's so important that you make a plan and that you treat that plan as something that is dynamic. It will change month to month in an early stage entity. So don't wed yourself to one plan. Know that every plan will have 1,000 iterations, and what you end up with will be derivative of the first plan, but it will have morphed 1,000 times. So be flexible.
Yeah, for sure. You'll be looking back and being like, what was I thinking all those months ago, right? With all of this and what you're all going to be covering in these videos, I kind of want to hear like the specifics, like what does Warren Averett offer for startups? How can they reach out to you guys for some help whenever they're actually looking into these different parts of their business?
Yeah, that's a great question and one I'm real excited to answer. And the reason is, I think for businesses that are undergoing a lot of change, it does make sense to work with a firm like ours, and there are other good ones too, but like ours, who have developed several outsourcing resources and services. And the reason I think that's so valuable is because um, it allows a company to grow into perhaps wanting to bring something in-house full time. And so it provides a lot of flexibility as it relates to scale as a company grows and its needs may be changing. So we have responded over the years to a lot of our clients' questions as it relates to needs they may have concerning outsourced accounting, where I'm working, payroll services. We actually work with ADP to provide payroll services, tax services, obviously, but then outsourced IT services, outsourced human resource services, many more. But my point of that is we've had clients who have approached us over the years who have said, "Hey, I'm having trouble in this area, perhaps HR. Where can we go to get help?" And so we've actually wound up developing a lot of that in-house, really to serve our clients that were having trouble addressing those issues as they were growing. And so we now, along with again other firms, but we now offer that as an outsourced solution so that as a company grows into that, there is a solution available without taking on the full cost of having that in-house. And as they continue to grow, then perhaps they do decide to move it in.
Yeah. I love hearing stories about how companies grow to fit their clients' needs, because I feel like it's just such a good relationship when you see that happen, and it's so much easier for a client to just turn and be like, we've had such a good time working with you guys on this. Please help us with this too.
Yeah, yeah,
It's so
yeah.
much easier that way. I love hearing stories like that. And I feel like I've even experienced that with like freelancing projects. They're like, hey, I need this done too. And I'm like, well, I'll figure out a way to do it then. It's fun that way. Well, we are always just so thankful to have Warren Averett a part of the I2C family and team. And we're super, super excited to get this Founder Fundamentals series launched. Super excited to hear about what you have to say. Thank you so much, Roger, for joining us on the podcast today. And we're looking forward to hearing about what you have to say during the series.
Madison, it's my pleasure. And if there's any way we can help small businesses get off the ground and get going and do great things, we want to be a part of it.
That is all for today's episode, you guys. I hope you enjoyed getting to hear from Roger and what all Warren Averett is going to be covering on the financial side of starting a business. Be on the lookout for when that series is going to launch. There are going to be a couple videos flowing out here and there, so just be on the lookout for that. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on all of our socials at UHI2C on Instagram and UH Invention to Innovation Center on Facebook. Onward and upward.